Walt, it's the dog days of summer, but for some of us, it marks the beginning of hurricane season. And the autonomy markets, the news keeps flowing. We had a new entrance to the autonomy markets, a company formerly known as something, which we'll get into later. Not sure they're going to make the autonomy leaderboard anytime soon, but they're coming. Tesla making news as always. They got something big coming in September for us. And Sterling Anderson, wow, oh, wow. He's in a GM for 2.5 months. He's turning that tanker around, and they're going back into autonomy. He's channeling AC/DC. They're back. What do you make of the news coming out of GM?
I mean, you called it, Grayson. You said that he was there and had larger aspirations. I was, a little skeptical, and just to be clear, Aurora insisted that where he was going, it wasn't going to be a competitor. And last time I checked, Aurora is still developing autonomy with Toyota. So now if GM is developing some level of Toyota, wouldn't that by definition make them a competitor? So I'm a little confused by that. So I think you were spot on this, but even, based on what Aurora was saying, there wasn't the expectation that he was going to go this route.
There wasn't the expectation. I believed it, and luckily I turned out I was right, because in the official press release from GM announcing the transition, not one mention of autonomy, autonomous, self-driving, put in your favorite verb to describe autonomy, nothing, zilch, nada. And boy, oh boy, there's a big strategy brewing, including GM looking to rehire a lot of the cruise talent per Mr. Anderson's request.
Yeah, it comes as a significant shift from them effectively killing the program right up to the top, right? Mary Barra, CEO of the company. I think as you pointed out, we're like a week away from launching an autonomous product and killed it. And you had a lot of people leave that company. So, how hard is it going to be, or how easy is it going to be to get them back? I mean, Sterling's obviously a known commodity in the industry, well respected, but you can't put everything on him. How hard is it going to get back? Because if I'm an employee that is left, aren't I saying yeah, I love Sterling, but are they really dedicated? How do we know we're not going to go down the path? Sterling is not, at least for now, the CEO. But so how do we know that the plug isn't going to get pulled on him?
We don't. Well, the question is, the third time the charm, or does GM get to the starting line and then they pull the plug in? We don't know what GM did when they shut Cruise down for the final time. They burnt bridges. They lost trust. They lost trust in your world. They lost trust in the autonomy markets. And for GM, the biggest thing they lost was trust with the engineers. So the interesting thing is, with Mr. Anderson's appointment, he's going to be based in Mountain View, California, not based in Detroit. Could that potentially be an olive branch to attract talent? But then as the overhang, is GM going to pull? Unfortunately, I have a pattern, so I have to ask you all, are they going to pull it? And I just think getting that talent is going to be very, very hard without board assurances.
But I would think that Sterling understands the assignment in that he will try and bring people into California. Whether that ultimately creates kind of a power struggle with where management is remains to be seen. Let's see if he even gets to that point. I guess my question for you and your kind of history with Sterling is he a build it alone, only invented here type of CEO, or do you envision that he goes out, tries to bring people back into Cruise? Maybe he didn't love the people that were at Cruise in the first place, brings in his own people, poaches from Aurora, right? People that are kind of loyal to him at Aurora. Or maybe this is an opportunity for Aurora to license the Aurora driver or some part of the technology stack. So tell us your views on Sterling as a build it or lease it.
I thought about both scenarios. My gut says, and this is based on Mr. Anderson's past, going back to Tesla with Autopilot, his past with Aurora and the GM corporate culture, is that they're going to build it. I've kicked around the ideas. Do they license a virtual driver? You mentioned Aurora, but that driver's clearly optimized for trucking. I thought about Neuro. I thought about Wave. But based on everything I know about GM and Mr. Anderson, they're going to build something. But when I say that with a caveat, let's not forget there are competing teams inside of GM. You have the Super Cruise team, which is building their ADAS, their level 2+ system. Then you have the remnants of what's left from the Cruise, their L4 system. The thing I think about, I love your opinion, is does GM try to merge, which they publicly said they are, but different tech stacks, merge the Cruise tech into the Super Cruise stack? And if does that even work? Or does Mr. Anderson have to say, wait, guys, we got to go back to the drawing board. We got to build an AI first system and kind of start all over.
This is the thing that they end up writing books about. When you have large companies like this, when you have multiple groups within a space, there's obviously, especially a company that's as entrenched as GM, there could be internal power struggles, especially if a employee base starts to get built up in California. I don't know where these other segments are that you described, whether they're in California or not. Who's got the relationship with the CEO? Ultimately, who has the relationship with the board? I mean, it feels like there's a lot of drama, or maybe there's some indication, and we'll have to wait for interviews of whether they're basically just turning over the keys to Sterling, and he's going to say, like, do whatever you want to get us back in the autonomous game. Any sense on whether that has happened? And by the way, not to pat you on the back again, but like, this is exactly what you said when he got hired. Let's wait for him. Is he going to be like doing these visits around? Is he going to be acting like a CEO, or is he just going to be kind of like pushed aside? He clearly, is acting the act of a CEO as a leadership. But do you think he has gotten the authority to basically do the things that you just talked about, merge all these things together and bring people back from the outside?
On paper, according to the GM press release, he has the authority, but in reality, unsure. What I am sure and positive about is the staff that works for Mr. Anderson loves him. They're really happy where he's going. They say he swears a lot, so it's like, well, it's not corporate speak, it's honesty speak. And Mr. Anderson has been well reported by David Welch at Bloomberg. It's a breath of fresh air for the employees that are working with Mr. Anderson. They're saying, okay, I'm not going to say the 4-letter word here, but it starts with an F and ends with a K, ED, Cruz, and he's openly admitting that. So there's a lot of trust building there. And if that trust continues, do those individuals that work for Mr. Anderson today go out, become advocates to bring new talent in? Kind of very similar to what we're seeing at Meta with all their hiring spree. Does GM go on an AI hiring spree or an autonomy hiring spree? That's a sign to watch.
I mean, that was a bit of a riddle to follow, all the FUs and this, that, and the other thing. Let's try and get to the heart of it, though, which is, when he was first hired, there was zero mention of autonomy. He didn't say, hey, I've got great respect for this group or that group. It just talked about the legacy of the company and blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't mean that you can't, in a large organization, you can't necessarily, well, you can. There's different approaches. Do you want to go in and start, breaking kneecaps and making no friends because you want the people that you want in there work with whoever? But again, I get back to my first question, which I don't think you answered, Grayson. Do you think he has been given the authority, whether by the CEO or maybe by the board itself, to go in and make those hard decisions? Or does he have to play the typical big company politics and make sure that this guy remains happy or this team remains happy and we're going to maintain here? And because the latter, I think, makes it hard for GM to get into the space quickly.
If Mr. Anderson cannot make the hard decisions, GM's going to become a relic of a dinosaur. And with all due respect, they're going to become Ford. They're going to lose money on every EV they sell. The future of personal transportation is autonomous.
You're dodging the question, though. Do you think he has gotten the authority? I know you don't know, but guess. I've got my opinion. I just want to set you up before I give you my opinion.
Are we Walt Cronkite here? Are you pushing me for the answer? Is that where we're going?
Answer the question, Senator. Answer the question.
I'll give you the answer. I think he has partial authority, not full authority. I do think that he has Mark Royce's approval. Whether does he have the board's approval? Does he have Ms. Barr's approval? I don't know, but I believe he has Mr. Royce's approval.
I think whatever approval that they have is probably bullshit, meaning that this is a large company and it's going to be a lot of backstabbing and battles. And we've seen the flip-flopping that occurs there. I don't think there has been a revelation there at that company and they said, okay, we need to clean house and get it done. I think they understand that they're at risk and he's a person that can help that. But I'm guessing that he still has not built up the power base to just be aggressive. And that's going to be a problem. So, because, I think it's going to be hard to attract those people and still not offend internal people. And if he doesn't use outside partners, whether it's Aurora or Nuro or May or whoever, I think this is going to be with all due respect to Sterling, who we have great respect for, This is not an easy assignment.
No, it's a hard assignment. But, and I predicted this on a pod way back when, if Mr. Anderson does succeed, he will become the next CEO of General Motors. I'll say it again for the record.
I mean, you were the first one that said that to me, at least. And like, I thought you were crazy at the time. I still think you're a little crazy on this and a number of things. But a lot less crazy now. You have to be a big company animal. Like, I don't know if you have those same requirements where he's been historically. Obviously, has a very type A personality. The Bigelow battle was a great one that he was the primary guy in. So I don't know. I think the bigger issue here is it also just feels like these OEMs are lost in general and not a defined strategy to get them to autonomy. I actually was able to get on the Luminar call this week and was asking about Volvo to try and get them to talk about their partner, because Luminar, who sells LiDAR sensors into Volvo, had to reduce their numbers because Volvo is reducing their numbers because the EX90 is a disaster. Now, look, that car's reduced, sales numbers are more about some of the functionality of the car itself. It has nothing to do with the LiDAR sensor, but it kind of underscores the technology challenges that, even great companies like Volvo, who have a reputation for safety, have when they're trying to embrace new technologies that aren't on like a 2 or 3 year path that they're used to. And another one in that realm is Ford, which, where are they in all of this? Because it seems to me like they are like the anti-autonomy company. Like every time I hear something from them, it seems like they're throwing cold water on the possibility of being involved in this space.
You're right, Walt. It's true. They are the anti-autonomy company today. As you spoke about a little bit earlier with GM, perhaps that's because of the corporate minutia or the corporate politics that go along with it. But it's sad, because if you go back to when Mr. Mark Fields was CEO, Mr. Fields was actively out there championing autonomy. Ford's going to sell an L4 personal vehicle. Mr. Fields flew out for the infamous meeting at Google, where unfortunately, because of the way he arrived, and it's been well documented in Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal, so I won't comment on that, they never got the deal. Then Mr. Fields doesn't give up, and you got to give Mr. Fields a lot of credit. He doubles down and says, okay, we're going to invest in a little unknown company with Pete Rander and Brian Selesky called Argo AI. And they put out, I think it's maybe a paragraph, 2-paragraph blog statement. Ford's investing $1 billion in an unknown company called Argo AI. Sent headlines, and what it said to the world? Ford's serious about autonomy. Fast forward to a few years ago, they shut it down because it could have been the relationship with VW. It could have just been Ford's desire. But ever since then, Ford just seems lost at the field of autonomy. They went all in on electrification. That bet, Walt, we know, did not pay off. They're losing $22,000 per electric vehicle sold in America. And that's before the tariffs kicked in. So what are we going to lose? $29,000 a vehicle? $27,000 a vehicle? They got to do something. And if you talk to any American, you own a Tesla, I own a Tesla, talk to older Americans, they want the ability for the car to drive itself under certain conditions. Ford doesn't seem to be listening. They seem to be focused on electrification and racing. That's not going to move the bottom line, Walt. I really don't understand what Ford wants to be. All I do know, they don't want to be autonomous.
I want to go back, though, because I'm interested. I didn't read those articles. What happened in that meeting between Ford and Waymo that scuttled the deal?
And I'm going to paraphrase that this has been publicly documented. This was in the Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, and Bloomberg. Mr. Fields shows up with bodyguards and these big Lincoln Navigators. Has to do a bodyguard sweep. And Sergey Brin shows up in roller skates at the Google thing. It's like, what the heck is this? It turned it off the appearance. They came in there with this macho Detroit, and they're like, we're Google. We're laid back. So I will summarize it. Corporate culture clash.
That's great color. I mean, I will say that it's a little unfair of Google to slam a company just because they happen to show up in their SUVs. I mean, that's the culture. It is what it is. It's not like they were buying the company. They were just trying to enter a partnership, but definitely very funny color from those stories. I think the bigger question here, though, is like even beyond Ford and GM, like where is the supply in the industry? We know Hyundai has their timeline. Where's Toyota? I mean, you hear a lot about them in terms of you go see May, you look at the roadmap, and they're very tight with Toyota. You have that kind of weird release from Waymo where it's like I don't know, a release of nothing. They're supposedly doing something with Aurora, although it's certainly well in the background. I think they've made an investment in Pony AI. And then you have Woven, which I guess is their internal development. So it seems like on the surface, they're super involved. Where's their cars? Like, I want to channel my inner Rod Tidwell to Jerry Maguire rather than saying, show me the money, because Toyota has shown the money to a couple of these autonomy companies. Show me the cars, Koji. Show me the cars. Where are the Toyota autonomous cars?
Before we get into the cars, you want to know a little interesting fact from Toyota's corporate history about autonomy?
Absolutely. Lay it on me.
They were one of the largest investors back in the day in Tesla.
That is crazy. I should know that, but that is crazy. So always around the hoop. They've shown people the money, but where are the cars? I mean, I think that's the issue. And I think it's a nice pivot into kind of what's going on at Waymo and the supply they have there. We know Hyundai's on the timeline. We've seen videos of, the Zeekrs that you call the unforced error that are being shipped. We've got an update from one of our friends on YouTube showing that they go back to that lot where we've seen the overheads showing about 2,000 cars, and now that's down to about 1,000 cars. So if you follow that timeline, these are all the Jaguars. They're probably going to run out of Jaguars to retrofit by the end of the year. And what's interesting is, like, when you looked at the newest video that shows this overhead, which you can see behind me, if you really zero in there, it's hard to tell, I'm sure, if you're looking on YouTube, but there's no Zeekrs there. So, what's going on with Waymo and how quickly they can ramp the supply?
I believe that Waymo's supply constraint, when you look at how quickly they can ramp supply, I'll push this back to you. Does Waymo need to open a second factory in Arizona, perhaps, to meet with the demand? Magna clearly has the technology, the skills, and the labor to do it. Do we need to see a second factory come online?
No, because as the photo behind me shows, there's empty slots there. They need cars. They don't need. It's not a Waymo issue. I think Waymo, if let's say they're cranking out probably 50, 60 cars a week, which is fine given the markets that they've launched for now until you get Hyundai really cranking them out. It's not a matter of their productivity, although that will be an issue shortly if Tesla gets their technology ramping. It's a matter of literally sourcing the cars. And, I don't know, like, they're going to have to start ramping Zeekrs big time, or again, what's our timeline on Hyundai again? And how many cars do you expect Hyundai to deliver? Because we have gotten updates from Waymo, and what are they saying? 3,500 cars, in 2026. I think we need to know more of when what's the target to get 20, 30, 50, 100,000 cars.
The last update we had related to Hyundai was the original press release in 2024 that said 2026 the Hyundais are coming. It's the Savannah plan. I've been trying to get us a tour. I want to bring Autonomy Markets on the road and visit Hyundai. So far, no success, but it'd be really great if Alphabet or Waymo, or Hyundai for that matter of fact, would give us clarity on that. Are they still on track for 2026? And if they are, I would love to know, what is the annual output of those vehicles, and how fast will it be by the time they come to the assembly plant so they go in service? I ask that because when the Jaguars are upfitted by Magna in Arizona, 30 minutes later they go into service. Will we have a similar timeline with the Hyundai vehicles coming off the Savannah line? That's something we're going to have to watch.
Yeah, I don't know. And I hope there's someone watching it there, because it seems like there's a lot of vendor reliance on Hyundai. Obviously, Zeekrs, given how things are continue to kind of be an issue between the U.S. and China. We had this issue with the chips, and the president taxing the chips, and then China saying, like, well, we don't want those chips because you just basically denigrated them in your speech. Like, things can change overnight with these Zeekrs, and then you're down to, and the Jags are done, so now you're just relying on Hyundai. So I've said this on so many of these podcasts, but it feels like they need to add some vendors. Toyota is probably the most obvious one, but again, that release was from months and months ago, and there's been no follow through on what we can expect between those two companies. Or maybe this is the end of the test for Waymo. they'll just run it out with the Zeekrs and Hyundai and then just say like, all right, fine, we've proven the business case and it's time to just license it to the private. I don't think that's the case.
What do you think the case is?
I don't know. I mean, I just think they need better product managers. I mean, I just see the success that Apple has done in terms of ramping up when there was demand. There's demand. There's demand that's out there for the product, but you just need to supply the cars in order to do it, which is a good kind of segue to our next topic. I've been getting a lot of investor inquiries this week. What's going on in Atlanta? And, there's some data out there that's suggesting that, the growth in Atlanta is slower than Austin. But I think it's probably not what I think people are taking data and analyzing the wrong way. If you go back to what we said about Austin, when that launched, and I think we were right at the time, day one, 35 cars, they probably ramped pretty quickly to 50. And within 4 months, when we were just out there to see the Tesla launch, they were already up to like 200 cars. So when you look at it, and by the way, at that point, people were quoting this Yipit data and how it's, the growth is so good versus San Fran. And this, this means that everything's going to be an Uber market. And that was the wrong take. So now we have this take like, the adoption in Atlanta is not good. But let's look at Atlanta. The ODM of Atlanta is twice the size as Austin. And you're most likely launching with, the same, if not fewer cars than you did in Austin, right? So let's say you're at around 30 cars in the launch. So you have 30 cars operating around a much larger area. Obviously, the share of rides impact to Uber, meaning the number of rides that are going to be on Waymo relative to total Uber is going to be slower because it's a larger area. Not to mention the wait times are probably longer. Don't know that, just guessing, but like a larger area, smaller cars, this is like basic logic. So to try and draw conclusions again from like some usage data, I think this sends the wrong message. The real takeaway here is, why aren't they allocating more cars, to Atlanta? I mean, are they sending too many cars to Austin to try and prove the point that they're like overwhelming Tesla in Austin? Or like, what's the deal with why they're not sending them? Maybe they just don't have enough cars. It always gets back to this car supply issue, right? As the limiter of growth, not the demand.
You're right. Remember when we're having breakfast and look out the window and I kept interrupting you because I counted Waymo after Waymo after Waymo. And then when we went on a walk around downtown, you couldn't turn left or turn right without seemingly seeing a Waymo. They were everywhere. The other thing that you didn't hit on about Atlanta, sorry, Atlanteans, it's some of the worst traffic in the United States. So if those Waymos are in Buckhead trying to go downtown, you're not going to see them a lot. So there's a lot of issues there, but you're right. And it's interesting. I'm going to put on my military strategist hat here. I should have all sorts of hats to wear on this show because Cousteau's coming out later. Don't you worry about that. Is this a show of force? Is this a shock and awe campaign in Austin? Look, Tesla, we're the mighty Waymo. We're going to put all of our chips in here. Well, unfortunately, the battlefield in Atlanta is falling short. Is this political theater? Is this optics? I don't know.
I mean, if you're still launching in Atlanta, you want to have enough cars. There's important people that live in Atlanta. And look, maybe it's just short term. We know that there's, 1,000 cars ish in that plant. 50 can come off the line per week. So, send 50 and you've more than doubled the supply. And I'm sure Atlanta will ramp up quick and all this data, what people will be looking at. I mean, they probably need to get to 150, 200 cars and you'll see Atlanta growth take off. I don't think there's anything about the demographic or the interest of people in any market. Autonomy is a great product. It's safe. It's safer. It's cleaner. These are going to be all new cars for sure. I don't think you're going to have the same type of, issues in terms of getting service areas, around Atlanta that you're going to have in the Northeast. So be patient, people. Atlanta is going to get there.
Let me ask you this question, Walt. Is Waymo expanding too fast because of their supply constraints with the vehicles?
I mean, I think they're expanding too fast in the PR department, meaning sending cars to whatever that term is that they use to make people think that markets are coming and launching. So, and like, look, at the end of the day, they have whatever the cost of that car is, $150,000. We're still in effectively science project mode. So they're not looking at it. It doesn't, well, who knows how they're looking at it. They're not executing as if this is really a production scale business. This is not to knock it and say, yes, Waymo is the leader. They are the most scale company. They're going to have thousands of cars, but it's stuff like this that I think you don't have the right people in certain positions at that company, and that need to be updated. And frankly, the issue becomes, I know that everyone still has doubt, not everyone, but most people still have doubts on Tesla FSD. But look, suspend your disbelief for a second, Tesla haters. Like, just imagine for a second that FSD works, right? And that they can take the safety driver out, the observer out, whatever you want to call them. They have these ODMs. There is no production issue there. They will crank the shit out of those things off of the line. These Model Ys, hardware 4, anyone that's worried about the unit sales that they have this quarter or next, they're just going to go right into the FSD fleet. And that is going to be a critical advantage, the production of those cars. And, I don't know how you solve these things. Like going back to that Luminar car, when I was asking about the Volvo EX90, the CEO who's mustering his words together was like, well, we're making decisions today on the cars that are coming out in 2027. Because I was asking him, who's ultimately going to buy your LiDARs? Is it the OEM or is it the technology? Well, those decisions are made today and I'm thinking to myself, well, the decisions are already made for Tesla. Those things are coming off the line today. If you're Waymo, you got no more Jags. Zeekr is Chinese, risk there. So all of our eggs are effectively in this Hyundai basket. And if it takes multiple years to get it in there, who is the next supplier?
And you know what's a bigger risk that really hasn't been discussed yet? Hyundai announced in the Korean Times today they're putting $320 million into an internal subsidiary called 42 Dot to work on autonomy and software-defined vehicles. They're re-ramping up Motional. What if Hyundai says, you know what? We don't want to be a contract manufacturer anymore. We want to commercialize Motional. You have a risk there that's starting to emerge.
It's just wild. All right, so now that I've given my positive rant on Tesla, I'm going to give you some criticisms of Tesla. I will say I use it all the time now. I love my new Tesla Y. The suspension is great, as I've said many times before. I encourage our listeners to go out and get yours before that $7,500 subsidy goes away. Don't worry, I'm not going to put my little referral rate out there. Just get it on your own, save the money, give it to a friend, give the referral rate to a friend. I don't have a code for you. So here are my complaints. It feels a little bit more cautious at night. Not a huge complaint. I prefer it be cautious and keep me safe. It still is operating. It's not awkward, but definitely more cautious at night. And for me, it won't park at my destination and it won't go out my driveway, Grayson. Still does not go out my driveway, which is a bit irritating. Meaning that if I'm in my garage, what's awesome is I can press the button, the thing backs out of my garage, and it's actually kind of tight for the Y. The Y is a fat car. It's a little tight. Great job. Goes all the way to the fish store, but then won't pull in the fish store and park. I'm hopeful that in September, that's going to get fixed with the new software that is promised.
I went and got pizza a few weeks ago. Parked right in the parking spot, parallel parked right on the street in front of the pizza shop. Mine's parking.
But you just said parallel parked on the street. I think if I let mine do it, it might do the same. I want it to go I don't want my car on the street. There's crazy drivers in New York. I want it to pull into that parking lot and pull into a nice, safe spot. And by the way, this was one of the big questions we had. And we know it did this, when we were in Austin, right? It did it quite well. We went into Terry Black's. It went in there and parked. It went into remember that doctor's office where the person kicked us out? We wanted to sit in there. It was 107 degrees. We wanted a little shade in front of this insurance broker, and the guy wouldn't let us sit in front of his store while we were waiting for our next Tesla ride. I wish I remember that dude's name. What a jerk. Anyway, I digress.
I remember his name. Not nice.
His name was first name not, last name nice. By the way, everyone else in Texas is fabulous, just not this asshole. But in this case, I don't know. I think it should get there, and so that's why I'm hopeful in September. It's those types of things that are going to give me more confident about Tesla's progression towards, full autonomy.
And you know what else is coming in September? Tesla's opening Robotaxi in Austin to the public. So here's the big question: safety attendant or no safety attendant.
I mean, I think if they're opening it to the public, they're going to keep. Well, I don't. Actually, I have no idea. But that will be the next unlock, right? Where the safety attendant comes out of the road. I mean, it's been. Here's the other thing I always say in the Light Shed podcast. I go to Rich on the Light Shed podcast. I'm like, hey, have you heard? Did you hear the big stuff about like Tesla in Austin this week? And they're like, no, what? I'm like, exactly. Because how many people were telling us that, oh, they're going to launch in Austin, it's going to be a disaster. And here we are, how many weeks later, and not a disaster, right? So whatever. I don't know. I mean, I think it's fine just to open it up to more people with the person in the passenger seat. And look, it's just I would hope that it's just a matter of time before that passenger seat observer gets pulled.
I'll give you a prediction. The safety observer is gone in Austin by October 31st, 2025.
That would be huge, I think, for them, right? And then you just span. And I'd also like them to see, enough with California. Like give us a market where you don't have some of the regulatory constraints, so we can continue to expand. Go to Atlanta. Why not? Do the people of Atlanta a favor, because if you go to Atlanta, maybe Waymo will ship more cars there.
Because that is just a hunch. What's happening there in Austin? So we know Tesla's opening to the public. I believe October 31st, no safety attendants, so they'll be competing services. What metrics, as an analyst, are you going to be looking to get clarity on? Are you going to watch to determine how each service is competing against one another?
As I've said before, like when we were in Austin, like, yeah, we thought Tesla felt better, but it was like, who cares? They were both good. So now it's just a matter of, supply of vehicles, which with Tesla, it's clearly less of an issue. Regulatory things, and obviously, the infrastructure, meaning the charging and the servicing of the cars. And we'll see how that rolls out. I mean, I think if you look at Tesla, they've got the superchargers, right? We've talked about the key challenge that other robotaxi fleets have. The fact that they have this supercharger thing, that's a huge leg up. And then on the service side, I mean, I just got a flat tire, brand new car, by the way, 330 miles. I'm not sure I hit anything, but whatever. So hit my service button on my Tesla app. Guy scheduled 2 hours later, comes out, replaces in my driveway, replaces the tire and leaves. I mean, I actually called the garage because I forgot that I bought the tire plan. Even if I didn't, it would have been a couple $100. The garage guy's like, oh yeah, you can get it here. Otherwise send a tow truck. I mean, it was like a hassle. Like, talk about service. Literally Tesla truck to my house, tire replaced. Nicest guy in the world too.
I had the same thing happen in my house. My father-in-law's over for dinner. He couldn't believe the guy shows up in the little Tesla things, got all the do. He's got to go out there and talk to the guy because he's like the little sneaky guy looking out the window. He was so curious. He goes, you didn't have to go to a car dealer? You didn't have to get towed? No, welcome to the future. And that's what nobody really understands with Tesla. They have the entire ecosystem. And as you and I have documented many times, we saw it on our trip. We visited the Uber depot in Austin. Charging is going to be one of the big competitive advantages for Tesla as they scale Robotaxi, because they have that network. And if you look at market expansion, Tesla's hiring an autopilot vehicle operator based in Flushing, Queens, New York City, Flushing, home to the Mets. If you want to use the Seinfeld, the Amazings, but I'm not a Mets fan. I my loyalties are in the Bronx. But it looks like New York could be coming as a Waymo Tesla competing market. What do you know living there from a EV charging infrastructure? Are there a lot of Tesla superchargers around?
Actually, I'm not familiar with that because, if I'm driving around New York, I can always charge at home. I don't know, dude. I don't think New York is on the near-term agenda for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, we have a new mayor likely to come in. To your point, the charging and infrastructure there is just not really set. And look, if Tesla can pull it off, that's a huge win. Right? You said Tesla versus Waymo. You're assuming Waymo is going to be able to figure out how to get all this stuff as well. So I don't know. I'd just rather Tesla. There's so many other things Tesla can prove out in other markets. They don't need to necessarily take on this beast of New York or what they're planning on doing in California. It's almost like they're over challenging themselves in the near term.
I like simpler markets. Expand in Texas, come to Florida, go to Arizona, build miles, build revenue, build a business, and let the regulatory stuff work itself out. That seems to make a lot more sense to me because the complications with the potential incoming mayor in New York are only going to get more difficult. And, So you look at the political situation in New York. So this gentleman basically came out of nowhere to basically capture preemptively the New York mayor race. Then we had another individual who resurfaced, Professor X, not the X-Men individual, but Professor X from Auto X. And I say that because I met this gentleman over a decade ago. Gentleman was an MIT professor, and I don't know if you remember this. Well, remember the little tiny cameras that you have to put on top of your computer, little webcams made by Logitech? They're very blurry. And this gentleman comes out and says, I'm going to make a car drive itself. I was never in that vehicle with the Logitech camera, I want to state, but there were videos. Can't prove it was right or not. Comes out and announces Tensor Auto. The interesting thing on that, it was formerly AutoX, but yet all the branding online was removed from AutoX. What are you making of this launch of Tensor?
That was quite a segue from Mondami to Professor X. The only Professor X I know is from the X-Men. So I just envision Patrick Stewart in his wheelchair. As this Professor X, I assume, can easily walk around. Maybe not. But the Auto X is the origination company. It's interesting, though, when they introduced it, they're saying founded in Silicon Valley and founded in California. I think most of the people we saw there were clearly former AutoX companies. The new company, by the way, is Tensor Auto, is what they're called. Came out with this press release. The press release was something else. Even though they obviously have this heritage, they talked about being a Silicon Valley founded company. I mean, let me just read something on the technology side. 37 cameras, 5 LiDARs, 11 radars, 22 microphones, 10 ultrasonic sensors, 3 IMUs, 16 collision detectors. Wait for this one. 8 water level detectors, 4 tire pressure sensors. I mean, come on with that one. 1 smoke detector, and a triple channel 5G.
And a partridge and a pear tree. I mean, you put everything in the kitchen sink in there, but you're Mr. Telco. What the heck is this multi-connector 5G thingamajiggy, and why do you need it in a car?
I mean, I don't know about that. That's connect. I think they're just throwing everything in there to kind of beef it up, beef the press release up. 37 cameras. We saw a video. I mean, the website looks very Apple-like. The car itself looks extremely sleek. I don't know where they're hiding the 37 cameras. One of the LiDARs in the front looks a lot like what Waymo uses. So I don't know about that. But this press release, Grayson, goes on, and they're claiming to be, now wait for this, the world's first AI agentic car, stating specifically at its core is a state-of-the-art multimodal large language model embedded with an agentic framework that brings the entire vehicle to life. To me, when I read that type of stuff, it just feels like, hey, what is the buzzword that investors care about, and let's figure out how to talk about our technology as if it's hitting this thing that everyone's like, who's got the new best thing? Because that's what, in the LLM world, obviously that's what people are looking for, is agentic. But to label yourself the first AI agentic car, I'm not sure how you get there to that. Do you have thoughts on this?
It sounds like somebody put it in ChatGPT and said, search engine optimize this press release, and had every buzzword under the sun into it. I don't know any other way to describe it to you. Sorry to be so harsh.
It's fine. First of all, the video itself is enough. Saying you're a new company is enough. I don't, to stack the release with all this stuff. I mean, they also talk in the release, they're saying, obviously you want to talk about safe. Tensor is designed to meet the world's most stringent automotive standards, including, and then it lists things as if they've already achieved these awards. IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus, US NCAP 5-star ratings, rigorous European GCC standards. I get that you're building that, but I think you have to be awarded the Top Safety Pick Plus from IIHS before you can kind of talk about it. Again, the wording is designed to meet those standards, but the way you list them out, it's almost like, hey, you're going to, this is going to be the safest car on the road. It was a bit much. I know you want to make a splash as a new company, but it just felt a bit much. But we are learning, or we are, very interested in learning. I've had no history like you have with Dr. X from AutoX. So definitely want to get up to speed with where they are with the product. And plans to ramp it. This is going to be a personally owned car, by the way, Grayson. No mention of trying to partner with with Uber and Lyft, which also, we have to talk to our friends at Uber. I don't know why you would turn down checks and purchasing from Uber. Maybe they really believe in this business model, but it's possible. Is it possible that they attempted that and did not get interest from any of the rideshare guys?
Well, if you look back at history, AutoX never had a partnership or any sort of public relationship with Uber. So did they go back this time? I don't know. And Chinese state media reportedly stated, this is Chinese state media, so we cannot verify this, that AutoX was shut down in China. So maybe this is part of a pivot back to America for being shut down in China. If they were shut down in China, as we know what's happening in China, there's a massive crackdown on autonomy. What the heck happened? I'd like to see some answers for that, some clarity there, because nobody knows, and there's been several reports out this week, people asking that, getting no answers. And another thing I want to highlight for the audience here, Walt, they have a manufacturing partner, VinFast, the Vietnamese company. These vehicles will be manufactured in Vietnam, shipped to America. The president's in Alaska right now, and boy, oh boy, does he like tariffs. And from Vietnam, you got a 20% tariff. So it's going to be expensive no matter which way this comes.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. And I think in terms of, I don't know enough about China, but I suspect that, sometimes companies can maybe not succeed or get shut down for things that might have nothing to do with the performance of the product or the acceptance there. It's certainly a challenging market on the political front, as many markets clearly are. So I love the fact that we have a new player. I love the look of this car. You didn't like it as much. I think it's great. I don't love the press release. I can live without some of the hyperbole and the positioning of things. But can't wait like every time to get into one of these things, and certainly we'll be on it for our listeners, figuring out Tensor Auto and whether this is the car of the future for you to own.
Yes, and if you watch the press video at the 1 minute mark, and maybe I'm wearing my Inspector Cousteau hat, that looked like a Waymo honeycomb LiDAR. That's right, it looked like a Waymo honeycomb LiDAR. I'd like to know who the LiDAR manufacturer is, because that thing looks so very, very familiar to Waymo's proprietary sensor that they're no longer licensing. A lot of questions here.
I look at it, it looks similar. We don't know if it's the same. And if I went to the website, the way I read the website, and I haven't spent a ton of time on it, it looks like they've developed, or at least they claim to have developed, their own sensors. I'm sure if Google has issues with someone stealing their technology in any shape or form, that we'll hear from them shortly. In the courts.
Not accusing anybody. I want to be clear on that. I'm just saying it looks very similar.
Yeah, I mean, things can look similar. I mean, look at all the products that look a lot like the iPhone, and those guys go crazy every now and then for cutting these deals with manufacturers when the manufacturers don't make money, and then act shocked that like a product looks exactly like what they just did with one of their manufacturers. I'm talking about Apple in this case, not Tensor. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic, which is Uber Freight. And we had some big news this week, Grayson, that was a bit of a surprise. You have Lior Ron, who is the CEO of Uber Freight, is resigning and taking the role of COO of Waabi, another one of our autonomous trucking companies based out of Canada. It seems a little odd to go from a CEO role, even though it's a division of Uber, to Waabi. What do you make of the move?
Well, odd's an understatement. A lot of things do not make sense. Yes, I know the founder and CEO of Waabi, Raquel, and Lior have a long personal friendship going back over a decade. But now I'm going to put my inspector hat on, because that's what I do. I inspect things. When you announce a product or you announce a hiring, you get a corporate headshot, right? It's true. Everybody knows that. The photo announcing this was the original, Walt, I'm not making this up. It's in the metadata. The original photo announcing the original Uber Freight Waabi deal. There was no new press photo. It's showing the two of them. Why is Mr. Ron not having his own photo showing him as COO? Is there a potential power struggle emerging here? The way the press release was written, It raises questions. Is this part of succession planning? Will Miss Urson go back to becoming a full-time professor? There's just a lot of questions around the photo and the way the press release was worded. I'm unsure where this is going to go and why step down from Uber Freight. You're doing $5 billion a year in revenue in the middle of a freight recession where the company needs your help. What did you see? What do you know? What are you not telling the market? I've got a lot of questions.
That's very speculative, but I think there is, at least some merit given the optics as you laid them out. And sometimes investors, for companies, if someone's not gaining traction and they don't want to necessarily make a change, they bring in someone. Sometimes it's a fractional CFO or this, that, or the other thing. But, it could be that step one and to get the company back on track without rattling people to get rid of a founder. So it's not, I think, crazy, but again, it's speculation. We have no idea what the situation is. And I think to read into a photo, it's probably a bridge too far for me, at least.
Okay, but I'm going to continue to be me, and I'm going to push back on you. I'm going to look for the next 6 months of public appearances going into your world. Who's presenting at the Autos Conference? Who's doing the B of A, the JPM, the Barclays? Is it Raquel or is it Lior? Who's doing the CES speeches? Are they together? Are they separately? Who's doing the media appearances? Who's doing the blog posts? I'm looking to see that. Because if you look at all Waabi media historically, it has all been Raquel, none of the other employees. So that's a sign that I'm really watching to see.
Yeah, I mean, on the flip side, though, like if all the investors want is for the thing to work and for themselves to make money. So, and Raquel, I think, does a great job every time I've seen her speak, even in the Bigelow battle with Sterling Anderson. I think, she held her ground quite well and made excellent points. So you can present well and still have someone else getting the job done. So I think I take the flip side of that. Just because, you see her presenting doesn't mean that that's, necessarily how the operations are getting run. But again, I don't want to speculate on someone's career and future, but when you have a CEO of a large division like Uber Freight leave to become a COO, these are certainly legitimate questions to ask. Waabi's a private company. I don't know who you're going to ask those questions. Maybe we look in the investor base and see the types of moves that they've made historically with companies that they own. And is this like coming out of a playbook of the owners of Waabi?
It could be. But one thing that we can track, even though they're private, we can track in an interview with TechCrunch this week. They said they were going to achieve driver out commercial operations by the end of the year. That's in a TechCrunch interview they did. How? So I want to ask how, because let's go back to a publicly traded company where we have data on, Aurora. Waabi has a Volvo autonomous solutions deal, very similar to the one that Aurora has. They're both going to operate on the Volvo VNL. That's the autonomous version, the dual redundancy truck. If Aurora is not able to achieve driver out on the Volvo VNL by the end of the year, how is Waabi going to be able to achieve that? It's just a question I'm asking. That's all.
I mean, that's a related question. It's not. I don't think. Maybe it is directly related to this change. I think that claim was made at CES, and it raised eyebrows. I think we may have talked about that at the time. It felt ambitious, and then when they launched that thing, you had your Inspector Clouseau hat on, and you found out where that truck was actually wasn't it an Aurora truck that was in the Waabi press release when we looked at the numbers? Am I remembering that correctly?
You are right. The Cousteau hat went on. See, I'm going to go when I visit Wave in London in a few weeks. I'm going to get a Sherlock Holmes hat so I can bust it out for you every time I call one of these things out. Yes, it was Aurora's DOT number on the truck. That is correct.
All I'll say, Grayson, is what did Elon say about robotaxis X years ago? About 1 million robotaxis. Sometimes CEOs need to set targets that are ambitious to motivate their people to get to the end game. So I'm going to give Raquel, is that how I pronounce it, the benefit of the doubt on her leadership abilities at the company. But again, this, and hopefully Lior strengthens that company, because we want these companies to succeed. We obviously want all these autonomy companies to succeed.
Lior is a great individual on a personal level. He's extremely smart. He's extremely respected in the freight market, and we wish him well. And we'll think he will do. I think he will do very well at Waabi if he's given the tools to succeed. Let's go back to Uber Freight here for a moment. So replacing Lior is the global head of electrification and sustainability. That seems odd. I don't get that because trucking runs on diesel, not electrification. What do you make of that? Because I asked that friend of the show, personal friend of mine, Olivia Hu, the head of autonomous trucking and electrification for Uber Freight, was passed over. She's a rock star who would have done a phenomenal job running Uber Freight and pivoted Uber Freight towards the future of autonomy. As Mac McDonald's doing as a COO, focusing on building Uber's Robotaxi, Olivia Hu's doing the same thing, and you've got a really great compliment there to build Uber into this big autonomous company. But she was unfortunately passed over, it appears.
I met Olivia also at Forward Fort Worth, and it's clear, just people coming up to her, that she's highly respected within that industry, for sure. On titles, like, I don't know what titles mean in corporate America anymore. I read a lot of stuff, and I'm like, I have no. My daughter just got hired by a large bank. Her title, I don't even know what it means and that what she does. I mean, I know what she does, but I don't understand these titles. But even if the title was specific regarding electrification, that's a pretty, clear word. Sometimes people move. If they're rock stars in certain areas, they get put a new assignment. I mean, let's look at Apple, where, you had all their AI people that failed. And so they brought people from Vision Pro. Oh, wait a minute. Vision Pro didn't really do too well either. But in any event, sometimes you shift people that have different titles into new roles in the hopes that it shakes things up. I will say, in your argument, one time I think the Eagles had like a defensive guy a defensive line coach become their offensive coordinator, or maybe it was the reverse of that. It didn't work out too well. So we'll see how this one plays out.
We'll see how this plays out. I want to ask you the last question here, Uber Freight. In March 2023, Bloomberg reported that Uber's looking at spinning out Uber Freight. Yes, I know we're in a freight recession, but what do you think Uber's long-term plans are for freight? Because it doesn't fit within their core model.
I mean, that's fair that it doesn't fit in the core model. I still think, I've been spending more time in trucking, obviously on the autonomy front. I still think there's a good opportunity for Uber to play a role there, but like, to what end? To get out for what reason? Like, is it going to help their growth rate? Not really. Is it going to provide them dollars that they can then redeploy? I mean, I guess, they could. This gets back to our conversation from last week about share repurchase versus autonomy investments. So maybe it creates more of a singular focus in the area, but I don't know if it's the right decision, but I'd have to think about that one more.
But you forgot, you didn't use the right term: recycle the investment.
Yeah, recycle. Exactly.
See, I caught you on that. Well, great show this week. Every week, the autonomy markets keep humming. What do we need to look for in the autonomy markets next week?
I mean, we're heading into the last 2 weeks of August. Hopefully everyone's either, if you're sending your kids back to college, maybe you've got that stress. Hopefully others are relaxing at the beach as we kind of enter into September. We have a Google Android event next week, so you never know. Maybe they can drop some car stuff during the Google Android event. I doubt it, but you never know with Google.
We could get an Android Auto update. We'll have to tune in next Saturday at 10 a.m. as always, because Walt and I are here breaking down the autonomy markets for you each and every week. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is personally owned autonomous vehicles. Walt, until next week.